My name is Rose Dinkins. I came to Muncie in 1972. I was 24 years old then. I was about 4 or 5, I guess. My sister was she had to be around 7. My grandmother and grandfather, who also lived in Pittsburgh at the time, had told my mother they were going to keep her for the weekend. They didn't take me with them to their house at all because I felt then, and I still feel today, because I was dark-skinned. And my sister was real light, so they showed her all the attention. So this particular weekend, they took my sister for the weekend to their home. And Sunday, when they were supposed to bring her back, they called my mother from Detroit and told her that they had taken Shirley to Detroit with them. They literally kidnapped her and took her away 8 years later. And at that time, I was to go to Detroit for a vacation to spend with my grandmother and grandfather and my sister. And my mother she put me on a train and she sent me there. And it was the most horrible experience I ever had. They just hated me, and she was the perfect little girl to them. She went to dancing school and she had the best of everything. And they just made me feel so uncomfortable there and mistreated me so bad that I snuck and got on the phone and called my mother and told her I wanted to come home. And so she sent for me. A few days later, they put me on a train and they took me back home. But while I was there, I remember my grandmother getting really mad at me because they lived in a real nice section of town. And I don't know I was outside one day playing, and I saw these kids, and they weren't real clean, and they were snotty-nosed, raggy little kids. Well, those are the type of kids that I was used to being around, being raised in the ghetto. So I asked them where they lived, and they told me, and they took me a few blocks away where they lived, and I stayed over there all day and played with them. And they were, wild little kids, and they had a raggedy, dirty house, but it was theirs. And when I went home that night, my grandmother asked me where I was, and I told her, and she snapped. She said, "You weren't supposed to be around there, and you were playing with them kids, and let me check your clothes and see if you brought any roaches in my house." And it was just terrible. I haven't seen any of my children in many years. I remember when I was in accounting, my mother was trying to get permission for my son to come see me because he had refused to eat. This is my oldest son, Leroy. He was 7 at the time. He looked like he weighed about 50 pounds. And it looked like his head was too big for his little body. He looked like one of the children in Ethiopia. And I asked him why he wasn't eating. And he said because he didn't understand what was going on and that he missed me so much. So I sat him down and I talked to him about what I had done and told him I was sorry. And I wrote a poem after he left that day. And the poem was, "A little boy came in here today to hold his mother's hand. A little boy came in here today and left a full-grown man. Even though he was still that small frame of a child, his back was straight, and he was a man."